Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is the last day of 2020, which means it's the last day of NLP 365 project. As usual, at the end of a project, I like to do my own personal self-reflection. And in this video, I want to share with you guys some of the lessons and principles that I've learned and used throughout this project. I've also tried to convince you guys on why you should start your own personal blog website if you want to accelerate your career. If you don't know what I'm talking about, NLP 365 has been my main project in 2020, where I set myself a goal of publishing a single blog post about natural language processing every single day in 2020. I'm very excited to share this video with you. If you're watching and you've been there from the very beginning, I just want to say thank you so much for the positive feedback and support that you guys have given me throughout the year. It's definitely been very encouraging and helpful and motivating to know that some of my articles have been somewhat useful to you guys. So I just want to say I really appreciate that. If you're new here, my name is Ryan. I'm a first year PhD student based in London, and on this channel we explore and share actionable insights on different topics in AI research, entrepreneurship and life design, encouraging us to take more actions and live a happier and more intentional life. If these topics interest you, consider subscribing. Now this video will be split into 5 different sections. I will first cover why I've decided to do this project and share some of the key results that I've gotten this year. I will then share some of the principles that have helped me complete this project, which I hope you will find useful. Thirdly, I'll cover some of the key lessons that I've learned throughout this project, as well as how I would do things differently if I were to do it again. The fourth section is where I try to convince you on why you should start your own personal blog website in 2021. And lastly, I want to talk about what's next. What's my next project in 2021, which I'm very excited to talk about. Now, this video is a mixture of self-reflection and trying to provide some form of values to you guys watching. So feel free to skip around as this video will be a long one. If you don't want to watch the whole video, I would suggest jumping straight to section 4. And if you're convinced on starting your own personal blog website, then definitely check out section 2 and 3 on some of the execution principles and lessons. Anyway, let's get started. So firstly, I want to talk about why I've decided to start NLP 365. I decided I wanted to do this project back in December 2019 when I was doing some self-reflection. At the time, I just finished my master's degree and I've just recently joined a large corporate as an NLP data scientist. And my main objective for 2020 is to secure a PhD offer. That is all that matters to me, nothing else. That's the main objective for 2020. So reason number 1 is I want to secure a PhD offer, and so it makes sense for me to set up a blog about natural language processing that allows me to keep up to speed with the current research in the space. Second reason is that back in December 2019, I was 3 months into my new job. I was working within the data science team. I was improving my skill, but I wasn't improving at a rate that I was really happy with. And so I needed something to make sure that my NLP development rate is at a rate that I'm happy with. And that is another reason why I decided to start NLP 365. The third reason why I wanted to do NLP 365 is because I'm someone who absolutely loves the idea of documenting my progress. I like the whole concept of, okay, I'm going to start on day 1 on the 1st of January 2020, and by the time I reach 31st of December 2020, which is today, I'll be able to see my progress from day 1 to day 366. How my NLP knowledge has developed, how my career has developed as a result of this blog post. I just love the whole idea of documenting, and I feel like NLP 365 satisfies this criteria. Fourth reason is something to do with leveling up myself as an executioner. I like this kind of NLP 365 projects where, it forces you to really step it up in terms of you as an executioner. You as an executioner is essentially your ability to get things done. Executioner is one of the roles that you play in the game of life concept, which I've made a video about, so if you're interested, definitely check that out. An example that I use to explain executioner and what leveling up as an executioner means is the number of times you go to the gym. If you're someone who usually goes to the gym 2 times a week and all of a sudden you want to bump it up to 6 times a week, you will find that rather challenging. But if you're someone who has been going to the gym for 6 times a week and you want to change it to 6 times of bouldering, you will find that a lot easier to make that transition. The shift between 6 times gym and 6 times bouldering is not that challenging because you're used to that level of intensity. You as an executioner is used to training that often. And that's what I mean by leveling up you as an executioner. You want to slowly introduce that level of intensity that you face through different projects. The reason why I want to consciously level up myself as an executioner is because I don't know what kind of projects I'll be facing in the future. And so I really want to make sure that my executioner, my ability to get things done is very high to ensure that whatever strategies that I need to execute in the future, I will be able to do so without having to think about whether I can do it or not. Now, the last reason that pushes me towards NLP 365 is something I call compound strategy. Now, when I talk about strategy, essentially what I mean is how I plan to spend my time. Compound strategy is the same as compound lifts in the gym. Compound lifts are squats, bench press, overhead press, deadlift, and basically any exercises that target multiple muscle groups at the same time. Compound strategy is no different. Compound strategy is a strategy that tackles tackles multiple different objectives at the same time. One move hits multiple objectives. And in this case, NLP 365 is one move that hits multiple different objectives. I can use the blog website to apply for jobs, to apply for a PhD, to connect myself with like-minded individuals who are very interested in natural language processing, document my progress, and even turn it into a passive income machine in the long run. These are the 5 reasons why I decided to do NLP 365. Now let's talk about results. What did I achieve in 2020? I've been fortunate enough that the result has been great in 2020. I was able to document my progress from day 1 to day 366. For me, if I can document my journey and have my blog post being useful for at least one person, then I'm done, I'm good, I'm happy, and I definitely have more than one person this year, which I'm very, very happy about. Speaking of compounding strategy, I've used my blog website this year to secure 3 job offers, all of which doubled my salary at the time. I've used it to connect with like-minded individuals who are interested and passionate about natural language processing around the world. But most importantly, I've used my blog website to directly and indirectly secure a PhD offer for me to start my PhD in September 2020. And that was my main objective in 2020. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting to hit that this year. And so that's definitely my biggest win from this project. Now let's move on to the principles that have helped me complete this project. There are 8 principles, of which I've grouped them into 2 different categories, 4 for the mindset and 4 for execution. Let's start with the mindset. The first one is know your why. This is pretty much the most important principle if you want to have consistency in any kind of projects. Essentially, your why is your last line of defense. It is the last resource of energy where you can really push yourself on days where you don't really feel like doing this project. One thing I want to point out here is that there are different levels of whys. Just because you have one doesn't mean that it's going to work. You need to have a strong why that you're really connected with. For example, most people know why they should go to the gym, why they should work out, why they should get fit, but those why aren't strong enough for them to stay consistent with working out, and so they ended up not being able to fully execute on that project. I know that it's very tempting to jump into a project whenever you have an idea in your mind, but it's really important to ask yourself why that project, why specifically that project. And I kind of spend quite some time thinking about the why for different projects, just because I know how important it is later on in the stage when it comes to being consistent with that project. I find it whenever I fail to be consistent for certain projects, it is because my whys weren't strong enough. And so when deciding to start a project, whatever that project may be, it's definitely worth spending some time thinking more about why that project, why that specific project. The second mindset principle is have fun. And this goes back to what Naval Ravikant once said, which is do things that are fun to you but looks like work to others. Fun is often an overlooked component, and when you're doing different projects that requires you to be consistent over a long period of time, the fun factor kind of ensures that you won't get burnt out. If knowing your why is your last line of defense, then having fun is kind of like a weapon that ensures that you don't use that last line of defense that often. When doing projects that you find fun, you can do it consistently for a very long period of time. Don't get me wrong, there are still days where you won't find that project fun, but those days will be a lot less than if you were to do a project that you don't actually enjoy at all. And on those days where you don't find your project that fun, that is when your why comes in, and keep that consistency for that project. The third principle is macro patient, micro speed by Gary Vaynerchuk. What this quote essentially means is that when you set out to do something, don't expect results to come immediately. In fact, don't expect results to come after a year, 2 years, 3 years, or at least that's how I'm doing it. So that kind of refers to being macro patient about the results. But on a micro level, on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, or even on a monthly basis, you need to be working very fast. You need to be having a very strong execution speed. I absolutely love this quote, but the key here is to not have the quote the other way around. Now the quotes say macro patient, micro speed, but most people have it as macro speed and micro patient. They expect results to come very fast, yet on a daily basis or weekly basis, they're not really executing at a speed that generates results. Using natural language processing 365 as an example, it is definitely a very challenging project because from a macro patient perspective, it's not like if I blog every day, I will end up getting a PhD offer. However, I need to remind myself to stay patient on a macro level, yet execute on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, keep putting out those blog posts and continue to develop my NLP knowledge. Last thing I want to say about macro patient, macro speed is that if you know your whys, then the macro patient becomes a lot easier. You tend to become a lot more patient when you really know your whys, you really know why you're doing it, and you're staying consistent with it. Now let's move on to the fourth mindset principle, which is luck happens when hard work meets opportunity. You always hear people talking about they make their own luck. And this year I really was able to feel that. When I started blogging on the 1st of January 2020, I knew that opportunities will come sometime time in the future. Opportunities can come in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, right? It's not guaranteed, but I know that when it comes, I need to be in a position to be able to grab it. And that's what NLP 365 allows me to do. In fact, as the year goes on, my NLP knowledge just gets stronger and stronger from day 1 to day 100 to day 200. And so my ability to grab opportunities just increase over time. And when job opportunities from recruiters comes in, I was able to grab that just because I'm ready. And when PhD opportunity comes in, I was also able to grab onto that opportunity and make that work. With the PhD author, one of the NLP 365 series is NLP Papers Summary, where I read multiple different research papers. I think I've read over 50 plus research papers throughout the year. When it comes to the PhD application, one of the stages is a take-home NLP challenge. And because of all these papers that I've read, I have so many resources to reference for that take-home challenge. I know other candidates simply won't be able to match just because of the time constraint. Now, you can obviously argue that I got lucky because the papers that I've read was relevant to the PhD application. Of course, yes. But then I also read 50 plus research papers that covers multiple different NLP areas. And so the chances are that some of the papers will definitely hit. Now let's jump to the 4 execution principles. The first execution principle is 1 is greater than 0. Now if you've been on the website, you have noticed that the tagline on the website says 1 NLP blog post per day for 365 days, full stop, 1 is greater than 0. 1 is greater than 0 is another principle that I've learned from Gary Vee. And it's essentially the principle of one thing is better than nothing. One comment is better than no comment. One blog post is better than no blog post. A blog post that consists of one word is better than no blog post. I think you get the point by now, but essentially one rep is better than no rep. Second execution principle that I want to talk about is quantity over quality when you're first starting out. There are 2 arguments for this. 1, quantity leads to quality. You can expect to have really good quality blog posts if you just write 1 per year. But if you start writing every single day, your blog post will improve naturally through the feedback of your readers. Second argument for quantity over quality is that quantity allows you to build momentum and short-term results very fast. And this is one of the hacks that I find very useful to counter that macro patient, especially when you're not someone that is very patient, you want results fast. If you want results fast, you just need to execute faster. And quantity definitely lets you do that. Now, the third execution principle is document over creation. I know that is a very common thing for people to say whenever they put themselves out there, that they have this feeling of imposter syndrome. And I definitely feel that too sometimes. But one of the ways that really helped me fight the imposter syndrome is document over creation. Sharing your experience over teaching. The whole idea behind document over creation is that you are learning in public. You're documenting your journey. I'm no expert in natural language processing. I'm no expert in anything, and I don't claim to be one. I'm just learning in public. And there's so many benefits to learning in public. If I say something wrong, or if someone disagrees with me, then I learn something. If my content is good and some people find it useful, I'm happy. Either way, I win. Like, there is no downside to this principle. I don't write these blog posts from the perspective of teaching, but from the perspective of sharing and learning in public. The fourth and final execution principle is compound strategy within compound strategy. We've talked about how NLP 365 is a compound strategy, but within it, we can also have another level of compound strategy. And what I mean by this with NLP 365 is that I'm creating content around things that I usually do anyway. With the NLP paper summary series, I was planning to read many research papers throughout the year anyway. And so I just need to spend a bit more effort into converting my notes into blog posts. Now, obviously you can't always apply this principle, but when you can, it's amazing because you can always get more things done given the same amount of time. Now let's talk about some of the lessons that I've learned throughout this project. The biggest takeaway that I've gotten through this project is accountability versus agility. Commitment is accountability projected to the future, and personally I highly value commitment and accountability, especially in today's world where it's full of distraction and you really need to stay focused on what matters. However, I realized that commitment restricted my ability to adapt. Commitment is accountability projected into the future, yet we don't know what will happen in the future. We don't know what kind of new interests or new projects that we really want to start in the future. I decided to commit to NLP 365 on the 1st of January 2020, but as time goes by, I develop new interests, but I really can't pursue them just because I'm already committed to NLP 365. And so you're now stuck in a dilemma, balance between accountability and adaptability. If you switch whenever you found a new interest, then you lack commitment. But if you always have a very strong commitment, then you lack adaptability and agility. And so now, how do we strike the balance between accountability and agility? And from what I managed to learn is that if you map out the vision to actions, from abstract abstract goals all the way to daily tasks, you can really see how accountability and agility really fluctuates from vision to actions. As you go from vision to actions, your accountability starts to decrease and your agility starts to increase. And when you go from actions to vision, your accountability starts to increase and your agility starts to decrease. And what I'm trying to say here is that you should be very accountable and committed to your vision and your areas and your area goals. But when it comes to SMART goals, projects, and daily actions, that's when you really want to have very strong, very good agility, be able to adapt to different situations. An example here could be you want to stay healthy as one of your areas. Now, in order for you to stay healthy, there are many different ways you can do that. You can go to the gym 6 times a week. You could go to the gym 3 times a week and go to the bouldering 3 times a week. My point here is that rather than being accountable and maintaining like a 6 times a week gym routine, move the accountability up towards the vision or areas and keep the execution, the daily actions, the projects, the SMART goals more agile. So if you want to stay fit, rather than saying I'm going to be accountable and go to the gym 6 times a week and commit to that, you should really say, okay, I'm going to be committed to staying healthy, and so I can do whatever I want as long as it makes me a healthier person. The second lessons I've learned is let your reader determine the quality of your work. Very easy for you to write a piece of content and think to yourself, this is not really that good. But you have to bear in mind that what is obvious to you is not obvious to others. And so I realized that in some occasions, what I thought is a really good blog post turns out to be not that good, and what I thought was a bad, okay blog post turns out to be really good. And so what I've learned is that it's not actually up to you to decide the final quality of your blog post. It is your reader, it is the person you're writing to that determines whether your blog post is good or not. Just because you don't think it's good, what is obvious to you is not obvious to others, people will find really good. The lessons that I really want to talk about here is process over outcome. Most of the time when I'm doing certain projects, I realize that the results that I've gotten doesn't happen at the end of the project. All the results and gain that I've gotten from this NLP 365 project doesn't come on day 366. It came throughout the year whenever opportunity arises. In fact, day 366 is usually a quiet day where you're trying to wrap things up, do your reflection, and trying to finalize on what you have learned through the project. The fourth lessons that I want to talk about is define your own win. If you're this far into the video, you guys deserve to know a secret. Ready? I stopped writing daily for NLP 365 at the end of November 2020. From June or July 2020, I started to accumulate buffer blog posts with the objective of not having to write a single blog post in December 2020. In terms of why I've decided to do that, one, I know that in December with this holiday festive periods, work is going to be very uncertain. I will probably be traveling back home, getting used to a new environment. I know that there will be a lot of frictions for me to write these NLP blog posts. The second reason is I realized that in December is usually when I do a lot of reflection, not just on the projects that I have completed, but on what has happened in 2020, what do I want to achieve in 2021, where am I currently at. There's so many questions that I really need to spend time answering, and I'm not someone who can juggle my mindset between executing, increasing my output of work, and actually sitting down and reflecting on these kind of deep questions. With the buffer blog post, I can use December as a time for me to reflect, plan out my 2021 instead of leaving everything to January 2021 where I will probably feel a lot of stress. Now, some of you guys might argue that, well, then Ryan, can you still call this project NLP 365? Because technically I didn't blog every single day. And yeah, maybe you're right, I shouldn't call it NLP 365 because it's somewhat misleading. But I kind of don't really care about these little details. And the reason why I don't care is because I define my own win. And my main objective and my main reason for doing NLP 365 is to secure a PhD off. And I did just that. And so I was able to complete most of my goals this year because of NLP 365 and because of the consistency that I've shown throughout the year. And because of all of that, I'm very grateful, I'm very happy, and I'm very satisfied. In terms of what I would be doing differently if I were to do this project again, there are probably 4 things that I would do differently. First, better categorization of blog posts. There are a few people already messaged me asking, oh Ryan, are there any blog posts that are designed for beginners? I was like, hell yes, obviously. But I don't know which one because there's so many blog posts. Even after 200, I just don't even know which one is for beginners, which one is a bit more intermediate state-of-the-art stuff. So if I were to do it again, I'll probably try to do a better job in categorizing my blog posts. Second thing that I would do more differently is to do more implementation projects. I realized that a lot of the blog posts that I've done is surrounding reading research papers, which makes sense given my objective to secure a PhD. But at the same time, I feel like it's very important for me to continue to develop my coding skills, especially in PyTorch, where many NLP researchers tend to use it for running their experiments. The third thing that I would do differently is to start a newsletter from the beginning to interact more with the readers. It took me 2 months or 3 months into 2020 for me to set up that email subscription list. and I was able to curate a okay-ish size email list, but I didn't really start a newsletter to interact more with the subscribers. And this is something that I look to do in 2021. And the last thing that I would do differently is probably ask a friend to do this project with me. In the past, most of my personal projects, I tend to do them by myself. And I think that's fine, but I think it'll be much more fun if I get to do this project with someone else. We can share our learnings, our journeys, keep each other accountable. And I think the whole process would just be a lot easier, a lot more fun. Now we are moving on to the fourth section of the video where I try to convince you on why you should start a personal blog website if you want to accelerate your career. Now let's talk about numbers. In terms of how much it cost me to set up the blog website, it costs around $5 per month, which equates to around $60 per year. $60 for the entire year and your blog website is good to go. Well, firstly, on Medium, where I put some of my NLP blog posts on, I was able to make over £100 this year, which is not a lot, but at least it more than covers the cost of the blog website. Secondly, the 3 job offers that I've gotten this year, the additional income that I've made accumulates to around £100,000 this year. So a blog website that cost me $60 to set up has made me more than £100,000 this year. And thirdly, I managed to secure a PhD offer from this blog website, which to me is priceless. So I'll leave it at that. So those are the numbers, which I hope gets you excited already. And now I'll give you some of the qualitative reasons of why you should start a blog website. First, compound strategy. Second is visually measure your progress. Most of the time, our improvements are so incremental that we don't realize how far we've come. With a blog post, with a blog website, you can see how far you've grown from day 1 to day 366 visually. And what that means is that now you can measure your gain much better than without a blog website. And those gains will act as a fuel for extra momentum in future projects. Third reason is readily accessible notes. The number of times that I revisit, I don't know, day 48 for a research paper notes or day 57 for textbook notes, the number of times I've done that is countless. A project might come out at work that requires me to read certain papers, and then I will be like, wow, actually I've read that paper, or I've read similar paper on day 48. Let me go back and refresh my memory on that. And instantly I was able to get up to speed with that paper and contribute to that project at work. Fourth reason is that it demonstrates that all the key skills that employers look for: discipline, hard work, consistency, passion for the subject, credibility in terms of knowledge, and practical implementation. Basically, before your first interview, your employer would have already got a very good first impression of who you are as a person. The fifth reason is that it changes the way you consume content. Before this project, whenever I see a 200 plus pages textbook or 30 pages plus research paper, I will be instantly turned off just because I was like, wow, there's so much stuff to consume here. With NLP 365, everything that I read will become blog posts. So when I see a 30 pages long research paper or a 200 plus pages long textbook, I just see that as multiple blog posts that I could turn into, and therefore I could read those long research paper or textbook throughout multiple days. And what that means is that throughout this year, I was able to finish few long papers and textbooks that I would otherwise not be able to, just because of how long those research papers and textbooks are. The last reason here is personal assets. Your blog website is yours. You own it 100%. When you work for a company, you might be learning new things, but you're building other people's assets. And that's something that really messed up my mind, is that whenever you're working and you're learning, the stuff that you're building, you don't own it. Other people own it. And so whenever I think about what kind of training I'm getting from a company, I'm also thinking about, okay, can I do this by myself and build my personal asset at the same time? Because if I can, then there's no point in working for that company. Because why would I do that? You might as well focus all your attention on doing your own project and focus on building your own personal assets at the same time. In terms of what's next, what's my next project in 2021? Besides the 2 core areas of health and relationships, and on top of my PhD and startup, my next project in 2021 will be my YouTube channel. Now, YouTube has been on my mind for a long time now, probably 2 years, and I've been putting it off for various excuses, which I will not go over in this video. I think now is the time, it's the right time now. I've just started a few new chapters, and I felt like it's a good time for me to start YouTube to document my journey in these areas. I already have a few video series in mind, of which one of them I already kickstarted, which is Research Papers Summary. Like with NLP 365, it's so cool to be able to see my progress from day 1 to day 366 through blog posts. But with YouTube and video content, not only can I see those progression, I can also relive those moments throughout the year, which I think is even more amazing. The second thing that I want to kickstart in 2021 is my own newsletter. And this goes back to one of the things that I would do differently if I were to do NLP 365 again. And I think now is the time for me to really kickstart the newsletter. In terms of what I'll be writing about in my newsletter, I haven't really finalized things yet, but it will probably cover AI research, entrepreneurship, and life design / personal growth / productivity / all those good stuff basically. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe to it. I will put a link in the description below. Now there is a third project. Now this project has been in my mind throughout 2020. It's one of the reasons why I discovered the lessons of accountability and agility. I was able to kickstart this project in 2020 because of my commitment to NLP 365 as well as other areas of my life. And I think I might still not be able to kick this off this year, and so I'm still debating whether I should launch this project. But if I do launch this project, I'll definitely make a video about it in the future explaining what it is, so definitely keep an eye out for that. And that's it for today's video. I hope you find this video somewhat useful. Now I've already kickstarted the research paper summary series on my YouTube channel where I summarize and highlight key contributions and ideas from different AI related research papers, which I'll link it up here now. I've also made some videos on entrepreneurship and life design, so feel free to check those out too. As always, any feedbacks are welcome. Thanks for watching, Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys around next time.